Tonight, we invite you to leave the restless pace of the modern world behind. Close your eyes and allow your breath to find its own natural, easy rhythm. As you settle into the stillness, we are going to travel far to the east, across the rolling downs and the silent moors, to a place where the air is always crisp with the scent of pine and the spray of falling water. We are traveling to Imladris, the hidden valley of Rivendell. This is a sanctuary where the clocks of men hold no power, where the centuries unfold as quietly as the petals of a night-blooming flower, and where the rhythm of life is measured by the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth itself. The valley is just now beginning to wake. Though waking in Rivendell is a transition so subtle it is almost imperceptible. High above, the jagged, snow-crowned peaks of the misty mountains, the Glarar catching the very first hints of the dawn. The light is not harsh. It is a soft, pale lavender that slowly warms into a bruised gold. This light spills over the granite cliffs, trickling down into the deep cloven valley like honey. It illuminates the ancient stone bridges that arch gracefully over the Bruinen River, their foundations smooth and cool. Worn by the passage of water and the padding of soft-soled elven boots over 1,000 years, the Bruinen, the loud water, is the soul of this place. Listen to it. It is a constant, shimmering, hummer-layered symphony of rushing water that fills every corner of the valley. It is a white noise, so ancient and so pure that it washes away the cluttered thoughts of the mind. Near the banks, the water is a clear, icy turquoise, swirling around moss-covered boulders that have sat undisturbed since the world was young. The mist rising from the river clings to the ferns and the low-hanging branches of the willow trees, turning the morning air into a moist, cool veil that smells of wet earth and ancient secrets. Standing upon a balcony of carved white oak is Elrond. He is the master of this house, a figure of such profound age and wisdom that he seems less like a person and more like a permanent feature of the landscape itself. His face is ageless, neither old nor young, though in his dark eyes one can see the reflection of stars that have long since faded from the sky. He is a bridge between worlds, carrying the blood of elves, men, and the angelic Maya, and as he stands in the dawn light, his mind is a vast library of memories. Elrond moves with a deliberate, haunting slowness. Every step he takes across the polished stone floors of his halls is a meditation. There is no rush here. He has seen kingdoms rise and fall like the seasons. He has seen the great forests grow from saplings to giants and then crumble into dust. To him, a century is but a long afternoon, a quiet interval between the turning of the pages of history as he begins his morning walk. The soles of his velvet slippers make almost no sound against the mosaics of the floor, patterns of silver and blue that tell the story of the voyage of Elrond, his father, who sails the high heavens with a silmaril upon his brow. Elrond's hand brushes against a pillar, and he feels the grain of the stone, cold and solid. He remembers when this stone was first quarried, when the foundations of the last homely house were laid in the middle of the Second Age. He remembers the sweat of the stonemasons, and the songs they sang, songs that have since been forgotten by everyone but him. He descends into the gardens, where the air is heavy with the scent of Nifredil and Elrond, flowers brought from the distant memories of the West. The dew is thick upon the grass, soaking the hem of his grey-violet robes. He pauses to tend to a climbing rose, his long, slender fingers moving with incredible gentleness to guide a stray vine. He does not prune with haste. He waits for the plant to tell him where it wishes to grow. In this valley, there is a profound respect for the agency of living things. The trees here are old and wise, and Elrond listens to the dry rustle of their leaves as the morning breeze stirs the canopy. He thinks of his friends, the great lords and heroes of the First Age. He thinks of Gilgalad, whose spear was like a star, and of the fallen towers of Beleriand that now lie beneath the salt waves of the great sea. These memories do not bring a sharp pain, but rather a soft, lingering melancholia, hereath for a home that no longer exists in the physical world. He is a chronicler of loss, yet in the quietude of Rivendell, he finds a way to weave that loss into a tapestry of enduring beauty. He moves toward the library, a vast chamber where the walls are lined with thousands of scrolls and codices. The smell here changes. It is a warm, comforting scent of dry parchment, beeswax, and old leather. The light filters through high, narrow windows, creating long cathedrals of dust motes that dance in the stillness. Elrond settles into a chair carved from a single piece of malin wood. He does not immediately reach for a book. Instead, he simply sits. He contemplates the play of light and shadow across the floor. He watches as the sun climbs higher, shifting the golden rectangles of light inch by inch across the ancient rugs. He reflects on the many travelers who have found their way to his porch. To him, the lives of men are like the flight of a bird through a lighted hall, coming out of the darkness, staying for a brief, bright moment, and then vanishing back into the night. He sees their frantic energy, their desperate need to achieve and to build, and he offers them the only thing Rivendell can truly give, a suspension of time. Within these borders, the weariness of the world is paused. The healing he provides is as much about the silence as it is about the medicine. As the morning progresses, the valley begins to hum with the quiet activity of the elves of his household. You can hear a distant flute playing a melody that seems to have no beginning and no end. You can hear the rhythmic clinking of a mallet in the forge, muffled by the distance and the sound of the waterfalls. The bird's song is a constant, joyous backdrop, the liquid notes of thrushes and the sharp, clear calls of the mountain finches. Elrond rises once more. His movements fluid and graceful, and walks toward the great bridge. He stands at the apex of the arch, looking down into the churning white foam of the Bruinen. He feels the vibration of the water in the stone beneath his feet. He is a guardian, a watcher, a keeper of the law that keeps the darkness at bay. But here, in the heart of the valley, the darkness feels very far away. There is only the light, the water, and the infinite patience of the trees. The centuries have taught him that there is a profound power in the in-between places. Rivendell is neither the high peaks nor the deep plains. It is a hidden fold, a sanctuary of the middle ground. And in this middle ground, one can find the clarity to see the world as it truly is, not a place of fleeting shadows, but a masterpiece of interconnected lives and stories. As we continue to walk with Elrond, feel the coolness of the air on your skin. Feel the weight of your own body being supported by the ancient earth, just as the house of Elrond is supported by the living rock. There is no need to hurry. There is no need to think of the hours or the days. We are entering the long, silent centuries of the valley. The heartbeat of Imladris is steady, slow, and deep. It is a pulse that invites you to rest, to listen, and to simply be. Come, let us walk further into the shadows of the great trees, deeper into the halls of memory, where the light of the Silmaril still shines in the tales of the elves, and where the peace of Elrond's mind becomes your own. The valley is open, the path is soft with moss, and the story of the hidden years is only just beginning to unfold. The transition from the golden heat of noon to the softening amber of the afternoon occurs without a ripple. A seamless shift in the quality of light that only those who have lived for millennia truly perceive. You find yourself walking beside Elrond as he descends from the high terraces, his presence a stabilizing force that seems to quiet the very air around him. The sun is no longer a sharp, white eye in the sky. It has mellowed into a warm, heavy glow that paints the white stone of the corridors in shades of honey and cream. As you walk, the sound of the Bruinen changes, deepening into a more resonant, rhythmic thrumming that vibrates through the soles of your feet. A reminder that the river is the ancient, unceasing pulse of this hidden world. Elrond moves with a grace that is not mere elegance, but a profound economy of motion. Every gesture, every turn of his head is deliberate, born of a wisdom that has seen the birth and death of stars. He leads you toward the lower gardens, where the scent of sun-warmed lavender and ancient roses is so thick it feels like a physical embrace. Here, he encounters a small group of wanderers, a mix of men from the far borders and a weary traveller from the woodland realms. He does not greet them with the loud fanfare of a king, but with the quiet, steady gaze of a father. He listens as they speak of their long journeys, their voices hushed by the natural cathedral of the valley. To your ears, their stories are tales of epic hardship, but Elrond hears the underlying melody of the ages. He sees the way their lineage has shifted, the way the blood of old heroes has thinned or strengthened, and he nods with a silent understanding that transcends language. For him, their words are like individual notes in a symphony. He has been composing for 3,000 years. The interaction is brief in the eyes of a mortal, but in the timeless rhythm of Rivendell, it is a significant exchange of spirits. Elrond offers no grand decrees, only a few whispered words of counsel that seem to settle the frantic energy of the travelers like oil upon stormy water. As they move away, their steps already lighter and more measured. Elrond's gaze lingers on them for a heartbeat longer than necessary. He is reflecting on the staggering brevity of their lives. To him, the men of Middle-earth are like the mayflies that dance over the Bruinen in the twilight bright, energetic and gone before the moon has fully risen. Yet, he does not view this with pity, but with a deep, reverent melancholy. He remembers their grandfathers as if he had spoken to them only yesterday, and in the faces of these young wanderers, he sees the ghosts of the past reaching forward into an uncertain future. Memory, for Elrond, is not a stagnant pool. It is a living, breathing tapestry that stretches across the generations, binding the fallen towers of the First Age to the humble hearths of the Third. You follow him now into the deeper recesses of the valley, where the trees are older and the shadows are tinged with a faint, ethereal blue. In a secluded glade, where a small fountain trickles over moss-covered stones, you see a figure standing as still as a statue of silver and gold. It is Glorfindel. He does not turn as Elrond approaches, for the two of them communicate in a silence that has been refined through centuries of shared burden. There is no need for greeting. They stand together for a long moment, watching the way the light filters through the canopy of ancient oaks. It is a shared observation of the world's enduring beauty, a quiet acknowledgement of the fact that they are both survivors of a glory that the world has largely forgotten. Glorfindel speaks a single sentence in the Old Tongue comment on the health of the trees or the shifting of the wind, and Elrond responds with a faint, knowing smile. There is no drama here, no talk of the shadows in the east or the wars of the past. There is only the profound peace of two ancient souls who find comfort in the simple fact of the other's existence. As the afternoon wanes, Elrond leads you back toward the great library, a place where the air itself seems to be composed of dust motes and the dreams of scholars. The smell here is a sanctuary of its own, the scent of dry vellum, the musk of old leather bindings, and the sharp, clean aroma of fresh ink. Elrond settles into a high-backed chair carved from a single piece of dark, polished wood. He reaches for a scroll that has not been opened in 500 years. His long, slender fingers moving with a reverence that borders on the sacred. As he studies the elegant, fading script, he is not merely reading history. He is reliving it. He sees the maps of lands that have long since been swallowed by the sea, and he traces the lineages of families that have vanished from the memory of men. He reflects on how a century can feel as fleeting as a summer afternoon, when one is immersed in the lore of the world, yet how a single moment of sorrow can stretch out to encompass an age. His mind drifts to Círdan at the Grey Havens, the shipwright who has watched the sea for longer than almost any other living soul. Elrond feels a tether to him, a shared understanding of the long wait, the long watch. He imagines the salt air of the havens and the rhythmic creaking of the white ships, and he feels the weight of his own role as the anchor of the mainland. While Círdan guards the gate of departure, Elrond guards the hall of memory. It is a quiet vigilance, a steady hand upon the tiller of a world that is slowly but surely fading into the twilight of the age of men. He contemplates the slow changes in the land, the way the great forest is thinning, the way the speech of the elves is becoming a rarity in the wider world, and the way the magic of the elder days is retreating into hidden folds like Imladris. The light in the library begins to fail, the golden rectangles on the floor stretching into long, thin slivers of amber. Elrond rises, his movement so smooth it does not even stir the dust. He walks through the silent halls, passing by open archways where the evening air is beginning to carry the first chill of the mountain night. He stops for a moment to observe a young elf playing a silver flute in a distant gallery. The music is thin and haunting, a melody that seems to have no beginning and no end, perfectly capturing the spirit of the valley. Elrond closes his eyes, letting the notes wash over him, and for a moment, the weight of his 3,000 years seems to lift. He is no longer the master of the house, the lawmaster, or the ring-bearer. He is simply a soul in harmony with the music of the earth, as the first stars, the jewels of Elbereth, begin to twinkle in the darkening velvet of the sky. Elrond makes his way to the very edge of the valley. He stands upon a narrow, rocky outcrop that overlooks the winding path leading up to the high moors. Below him, the valley is a bowl of deep violet shadows, the lights of the last homely house glowing like warm orange embers in the gloom. The Bruinen is a silver thread now, its voice a constant, soothing murmur that rises from the depths. He watches the shadows of the misty mountains stretch out across the foothills, long and jagged, like the fingers of a sleeping giant. The air is crisp and sharp with the scent of ozone and cold stone. Elrond stands perfectly still, his dark hair stirred slightly by the evening breeze. He feels the quiet vigilance of his life, the thousands of nights he has stood thus, watching the world turn, watching the stars march across the heavens. He thinks of the friends who have passed into the west, and those who have fallen into the long sleep of man. He feels their presence in the wind and the water, a chorus of silent witnesses to his enduring watch. The centuries have been long, filled with the labor of preservation and the sorrow of loss. Yet in this moment of twilight, they feel as fleeting as a dream. He is the guardian of the threshold, the one who remains when all others have departed or forgotten. He feels the cold, hidden power of Vilya upon his finger, a steady hum that resonates with the heartbeat of the valley. It is a lonely task, in many ways, to be the memory of a fading world. But as he looks down at the warm lights of his home, he finds a profound contentment. He has created a space where peace is possible, where the weariness of the world can be set aside, and where the stories of the past can still be heard in the rustle of the leaves. The darkness deepens until the mountains are merely silhouettes against the starlight. Elrond remains, a shadow among shadows. His spirit is deep and unshakable as the roots of the world. He is the master of the silent centuries, the keeper of the hidden flame. And as the night settles over Imladris, he remains at his post, a silent, watchful figure at the edge of the world, ready to guide the next weary traveller who finds their way to the last homely house. The rhythm of Rivendell is now the rhythm of the stars, slow, eternal, and infinitely peaceful. The twilight deepens into a rich, indigo stillness, and you follow Elrond back from the cliff's edge, moving through the arched stone doorways where the air remains cool and smells of damp moss and ancient earth. The world outside the valley may be governed by the frantic cycles of growth and decay, but here, as you walk behind the master of Imladris, you feel the weight of centuries settling like fine, invisible dust upon the shoulders. He does not go to seek sleep, for the night is when the memory of the Eldar is most vivid, and Elrond's private rituals are woven into the very fabric of the dark. He enters the great library once more, but this time he does not light the tall candles. Instead, he moves by the soft, ambient glow of the stars and the faint, phosphorescent light that seems to emanate from certain ancient crystals set into the walls. You watch him approach a massive iron-bound ledger that rests upon a lectern of dark Malorn wood. His movements are so fluid and silent that the only sound is the rhythmic, velvet rustle of his heavy robes against the polished floor. He dips a long, white quill into a well of ink that smells of iron and crushed berries, and he begins to write. This is his quiet stewardship, the recording of things that would otherwise vanish into the mist of time. He writes of the subtle changes in the valley, how the Bruinen has shifted its course by a hair's breadth over the last 50 years, how a certain species of mountain fern has begun to climb higher up the northern cliffs, and how the light of the evening star seemed particularly sharp on this midsummer night. To you, these might seem like trivialities, but to Elrond, they are the vital signs of a living world. He reflects on the fading of old powers, the way the great songs of the First Age are slowly becoming whispers, and how even the strongest alliances are susceptible to the slow erosion of the years. His mind is a vast archive of such observations, a chronicle of the world's gradual transformation from a land of myth into a land of history. He feels no bitterness at this fading, only a profound, patient curiosity. He understands that for something new to be born, something old must pass away. Yet he sees it as his sacred duty to be the one who remembers the before. The scratch of the quill on the parchment is the only heartbeat in the room, a small terrestrial sound that grounds the celestial silence. As he writes, his thoughts drift to the visitors he has seen today. He considers the brief, intense lives of men, noting in his ledger the names of the rangers who passed through, adding them to the long genealogies he keeps with such meticulous care. He thinks of them not as subjects or pawns, but as fragile, beautiful sparks of light. He reflects on the irony that he, who has lived for thousands of years, can find such profound meaning in the 3-day stay of a mortal traveller. It is their very brevity that makes them precious to him. He observes the way the light of the stars catches the ink before it dries, turning the black script into a shimmering trail of silver. He is a man of 1,000 memories, yet he approaches each entry with the freshness of a student, as if he is seeing the world for the first time, leaving the library. Elrond leads you down toward the lower halls, where the sound of the river is a constant, low-frequency hum. He pauses by a tall, open window to listen. To your ears, it is simply the sound of rushing water, but Elrond hears the layered history of the mountains in that sound. He hears the grinding of the glaciers that carved this valley, the sigh of the melting snows from the high peaks, and the rhythmic pulse of the earth's own breathing. He stands there for a long time, his hands folded in his sleeves, his face a mask of absolute serenity. He is not waiting for anything. He is simply being. This is the essence of his stewardship, the ability to witness the world without the need to command or change it. He notes the way the seasons have begun to lean more heavily into the valley, the winters growing slightly longer, the springs arriving with a more tentative touch. He feels the slow cooling of the world, the subtle thinning of the magic that once saturated every leaf and stone. You follow him as he walks through the gardens under the silver light of the moon. The flowers of Rivendell are different at night. The Nifredel glows with a faint, internal luminescence, and the white roses seem to drink in the starlight until they are almost translucent. Elrond moves among them, his presence so gentle that not a single dewdrop is disturbed. He stops to touch a low-hanging branch of a silver birch, his fingers lingering on the papery bark. He is listening to the tree, sensing the slow movement of sap and the deep, dormant dreams of the roots. He reflects on the long centuries of peace he has maintained here, a peace that is not merely the absence of war, but a deliberate, cultivated harmony. He thinks of the many who have found healing in this garden, and how the earth itself seems to respond to the quiet care of the elves. He knows that this sanctuary is a fragile thing, a bubble of the past preserved in the rushing current of the present, and he accepts the burden of its preservation with a quiet, unshakable resolve as he walks. He encounters a young elf sitting on a stone bench, gazing up at the sky. They do not speak, but a look of profound understanding passes between them. This is the way of the High Elves, a communion of spirit that requires no words. Elrond continues on, his soft footsteps echoing faintly on the stone paths. He hears a distant birdsong, a nightjar calling from the dark woods, its voice a liquid haunting sound that seems to stitch the earth to the sky. He reflects on how the music of the valley has changed over the ages. Once, the halls were filled with the thunderous epics of the Noldor, songs of fire and rebellion. Now, the music is softer, more introspective, like the flute melody you heard earlier. It is the music of a people who are preparing to leave, who are savoring the last notes of a long and beautiful symphony. Elrond feels this transition in his own solar gradual shifting from the role of an actor in the drama of Middle-earth to the role of a witness. He returns to the house, walking through the silent galleries where the tapestries of the First Age hang like frozen dreams. He pauses before a depiction of the fall of Gondolin, his eyes tracing the embroidered flames and the tragic faces of his kin. He does not look with pain, for the pain has long since been transformed into a quiet, meditative sorrow. He looks with recognition. He sees the patterns of history repeating themselves, the rise of shadows and the inevitable return of the light. He understands that his long life is a thread in a much larger tapestry, a thread that has been woven through the brightest and darkest parts of the design. He reflects on the nature of patience, the patience of one who waits for an end, but the patience of a mountain that simply endures. He has seen the world broken and remade, and he knows that the current peace of Rivendell is both a gift and a responsibility. In the small hours of the night, Elrond finds himself in a small, circular chapel open to the sky. There is no altar here, only a floor of polished obsidian that reflects the stars like a dark, still pool. He stands in the center of the circle, looking up at the vast, glittering expanse of the heavens. He sees the belt of Manelmachar, the bright jewels of the Valar, and the steady, guiding light of the star of Erendi. He reflects on what it means to witness the slow unfolding of time. For thousands of years, he has watched these same stars march across the sky, yet they never look the same twice. He sees the infinite variety in the repetition, the subtle shifts in the cosmic dance. He feels the immense scale of the universe and the small, precious significance of his own life and the lives of those he protects. He stands there without judgment, without the need for action, only with presence. He is the quiet center of the valley, the point of stillness in a world of motion. He thinks of the fading of the three rings, of the inevitable day when the power of Vilya will fail and the beauty of Imladris will become a memory. He accepts this future without fear, for he has learned that the value of a thing is not measured by its duration, but by its essence. The peace he has cultivated here is real, regardless of how long it lasts. The wisdom he has gathered is true, even if there comes a time when no one is left to hear it. He feels a profound sense of gratitude for the silent centuries, for the opportunity to have been the steward of such beauty and the keeper of such deep, quiet secrets. The air grows colder as the dawn approaches, a sharp, pre-morning chill that carries the scent of the high snows. Elrond remains in the star-chapel, his face upturned, his dark hair silvered by the starlight. He is a figure of infinite patience, a witness to the turning of the great wheel. He has seen the dawn of 3 ages, and he will see the dawn of the 4th. For now, he is content to be the watcher in the night, the one who holds the memory of the world in his heart while the valley sleeps. He feels the heartbeat of the earth beneath his feet, the rush of the river in his ears, and the light of the stars in his soul. He is Elrond of Rivendell, and in this moment of perfect, starlit silence, he is exactly where he is meant to be. The centuries unfold around him like the petals of a great dark rose, and he is the one who notices the scent, the texture, and the slow, inevitable bloom. He closes his eyes for a brief moment, not in sleep, but in a deep, internal bow to the mystery of existence, before turning to face the first pale light of the coming day. The first light of a new day begins to bleed through the high, eastern crags of the misty mountains, but the valley of Imladris remains cradled in a soft, pearlescent gloom. You walk behind Elrond as he moves through the long, vaulted cloisters of the house, his presence as light as the morning mist. The air is cool, carrying the sharp, invigorating scent of wet stone and the first faint traces of wood smoke from the kitchens below. There is a gentle, rhythmic clatter, the sound of soft-soled boots on ancient masonry, as the household begins to stir. Elrond pauses by a wide, open archway, his gaze fixed on the courtyard where a new company of travellers has just arrived. These are not the weary rangers of the north, but lawkeepers from the distant south, their robes heavy with the dust of a dozen different lands, their eyes bright with the hunger for knowledge that only Rivendell can satisfy. You observe the way Elrond receives them. There is no herald, no blare of trumpets. There is only the quiet, steady dignity of a host who has welcomed 10,000 such souls. He descends the stairs, and as he approaches, the air seems to settle, the frantic energy of the travellers dissipating like steam in the cold morning air. He listens as they speak, his head slightly tilted, his expression one of profound, unhurried attention. They tell stories of the changing tides in the Bay of Belfalis, of the shifting sands of the Herod, and of the growing shadows in the ancient forests of Rivendell. To your ears, these are reports of a world in flux, of distant conflicts, and the rising and falling of nameless kings. But to Elrond, these stories are threads in a familiar pattern. He hears the echoes of the Second Age in their words. He hears the same ambitions, the same fears, and the same fleeting glories that he has seen crumble into dust a dozen times before. The conversation is a gentle rhythm, a back and forth that mirrors the flow of the Bruinen below. Elrond asks questions that seem simple but pierce to the heart of the matter. Questions about the health of the white trees in the high valleys, the colour of the sunset over the sea, and the songs being sung in the taverns of men. He is not seeking tactical intelligence. He is seeking the pulse of the world. He carries the subtle, heavy responsibility of being the memory of Middle-earth, the one who must discern which stories are worth preserving and which are merely the chaff of a passing season. You see the travellers relax under his gaze, their voices lowering as they realize they are in the presence of someone for whom time is not an enemy, but a companion. The smell of cooking fresh bread, dried fruits, and the earthy aroma of roasting nut wafts up from the lower terraces, adding a layer of domestic comfort to the high-minded discourse. Elrond leads the lawkeepers toward the library, and you follow in their wake. The transition into the room is like entering a temple of silence. The only sounds are the soft rustle of parchment and the occasional, distant call of a mountain eagle. Elrond gestures toward a table where ancient maps are spread out, their edges curled and yellowed like autumn leaves. He begins to share his own knowledge, his voice a low melodic baritone that seems to vibrate with the weight of the ages. He speaks of the rise and fall of kingdoms of Arna, which he saw bloom and fade like a summer flower, and of Gondor, whose towers he remembers when they were white and new. He speaks of old friends, Círdan, Celeborn, and those who have long since taken the straight road to the Westnot, with the sharp grief of the short-lived, but with a calm, meditative reverence. For Elrond, they are not gone. They are simply part of the foundation upon which the present stands. His role as an advisor is subtle, almost invisible. He does not command. He suggests. He does not dictate. He illuminates. He remains apart from the worldly struggles of the travellers, a figure standing on a high shore watching the turbulent sea. He knows that his power is not the power of the sword, but the power of the spirit, the ability to provide a point of stillness in a world of motion. He reflects on the fading of the old powers, the way the great rings are becoming legends even to those who wield them, and the subtle, inevitable thinning of the magic that once defined the world. He feels the weight of this preservation, the constant effort required to keep the silent centuries of Rivendell from being swallowed by the noise of the outside world. As the morning progresses, Elrond leaves the lawkeepers to their studies and walks alone through the upper gardens. The sunlight is stronger now, turning the dew on the grass into a field of diamonds. He observes the seasons with a precision that only an immortal can possess. He notes the exact day the first leaf of the malin turns gold, the exact hour the swallows begin their flight south, and the way the shadows of the mountains shift by a fraction of a degree each year. He finds a profound peace in this observation. He is a witness to the slow, beautiful unfolding of the earth's own story. A story that does not need a hero or a climax, only a presence to acknowledge its existence. He reflects on the fact that while he protects the memory of the past, the earth itself is constantly renewing, indifferent to the tragedies and triumphs of those who walk upon it. He pauses by a small fountain, the water splashing musically into a basin of green jasper. He thinks of the many wars he has seen, the blood that has soaked the earth of Middle-earth, and the long, slow healing that follows. He realizes that Rivendell is a scar that has healed perfectly, a place where the earth was once torn by the foundations of a house, but has now embraced that house as part of itself. He feels a deep, quiet gratitude for this sanctuary. He is the guardian of the dream, the one who ensures that there is at least one place left where a soul can be still and listen to the wind. He contemplates the eventual end of his watch, the time when he, too, will follow the path to the west. The thought brings him no anxiety, only a sense of completion. He is like a gardener who has spent his life tending a forest, knowing that one day he will walk out of the trees and leave them to grow on their own. You watch him as he moves back toward the main house, his footsteps light on the mossy paths. He passes a young elf playing a harp in a hidden alcove, the notes falling like cool water into the silence. Elrond stops to listen, his eyes closing, his spirit merging with the melody. It is a song of the sea, of the foam and the white gulls and the distant golden shore. He feels the pull of that shore in his own blood, the longing that all his kin feel, yet he suppresses it with the ease of long practice. His work here is not yet done. There are still stories to be recorded, travelers to be guided, and the memory of the world to be held in the light. He ascends to a high balcony that overlooks the entire valley just as the sun begins to crown the peaks. The world below is waking up in earnest now, the sound of the forge, the laughter of children, the lowing of the kinnie in the distant fields. But up here, on the balcony of dawn, there is only the wind and the light. Elrond stands with his hands on the railing, his face bathed in the pale gold of the morning. He feels the weight of the centuries not as a burden, but as a garment, a rich, heavy cloak woven of a million different moments. He reflects on what it means to be the master of Imladris, the keeper of the hidden years. He looks out over the mountains, his gaze piercing the distance. He sees the slow, steady turning of the world, the rise of new suns and the setting of old ones. He is a witness to the infinite patience of the universe, and in that patience he finds his own strength. He is Elrond Paridel, and he is the point of stillness at the heart of the storm. He remains there for a long time, a solitary figure against the vast, awakening sky, feeling the quiet vigilance of his long life. The day is new, the world is old, and the silence of Rivendell is a song that will never truly end, as long as there is one soul left to hear it. He breathes in the morning air, a deep, slow inhalation that tastes of the stars and the earth, and he is content. The story of the silent centuries continues, and he is its faithful scribe, its silent witness, and its eternal guardian. The cycle of the valley turns, not with the frantic ticking of a clock, but with the majestic, heavy deliberation of the celestial spheres. You walk beside Elrond as the golden amber of late summer begins to fray at the edges, yielding to the first crisp breath of autumn. In Imladris, the transition is a sensory masterpiece. The vibrant emerald of the oak canopy deepens into a bruised copper, and then, with a suddenness that feels like a shared secret between the trees. The air is filled with the drifting, spiraling descent of leaves. They carpet the stone paths in layers of russet and gold, muffling the sound of Elrond's footsteps as he walks the winding perimeter of the gardens. He does not order the paths cleared with haste. He finds a profound, quiet beauty in the decay. He watches a single beech leaf settle upon the dark surface of a garden pool, creating a series of perfect, concentric rings that expand until they touch the mossy rim. To him, this is the visual language of history's small actions, quietly taken, that ripple across the vastness of time. As the autumn air grows sharper, Elrond spends more of his private hours within the deeper sanctums of the archives. You watch him move through the rows of cedarwood shelves, his hands tracing the spines of books that have not been touched by mortal hands since the fall of a reed. This is his season of curation. He spends his mornings rebinding scrolls that have become brittle with the centuries, his long fingers moving with the precision of a master surgeon. The smell here is intoxicating, a mixture of old glue, dried lavender used to ward off silverfish, and the faint, sweet musk of ancient vellum. He reflects on the friends who once walked these halls during the golden years of the Second Age. He remembers Celeborn's silver laughter and the sharp, piercing wisdom of Galadriel. These memories are not sharp stabs of grief, but rather the soft, enduring glow of embers. He sees their faces in the flickering candlelight, not as they are now, but as they were when the world was young and the hope of the elves was a rising tide. Then comes the great white silence. Winter in Rivendell is a time of deep, introspective indwelling. The Bruinen becomes a dark, thrumming ribbon cutting through a landscape of purest white. Snow blankets the high bridges and settles heavily upon the boughs of the fir trees, turning the valley into a cathedral of ice and marble. Elrond's routine shifts to the inner cloisters. You follow him as he walks the length of the Hall of Fire, where the great hearth is never allowed to go out. The smell of burning pine and applewood fills the air, a warm and resinous scent that contrasts with the biting cold beyond the windows. In this season, Elrond's thoughts turn toward the ancient battles, the siege of Barad-dûr, the cries of the fallen on the slopes of Orodruin, and the cold, hard weight of the spear igloes in the hands of Gil-galad. He remembers the banners snapping in the freezing wind and the iron-grey sky of the last alliance. He meditates on these things without the heat of anger or the sting of defeat. He views them as a scholar views a map of a vanished coastline. They are the landmarks of his soul, the events that forged the peace he now guards with such silent vigilance. When the first thaw begins, and the silver threads of the waterfalls turn into thundering white torrents, you find Elrond standing by the riverbank. Spring in Imladris is a violent, beautiful awakening. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth, crushed stone, and the first tentative blooms of Elrond. Elrond watches the river with a specialized intensity. He notes how the rushing water carves new hollows into the bank, how it carries away the debris of winter to make room for the new growth. He reflects on his own role as a witness to this constant recycling of life. He sees himself as the riverbed, the stable, unmoving foundation that allows the frantic energy of the seasons to flow over him without washing him away. He spends hours observing the return of the mountain birds, noting the exact day the first swallow returns to the eaves of the library. His stewardship is one of minute details, a commitment to noticing the things that everyone else is too busy to see. Summer returns with a heavy, honeyed heat that bakes the stone steps and sends the scent of wild thyme wafting through the open galleries. Elrond's private rituals during this time are often solitary walks at the peak of noon, when the rest of the household seeks the shade. He climbs to the highest balconies to watch the sun bake the granite cliffs, feeling the warmth penetrate deep into his bones. He thinks of the long journeys of his youth, the wandering through the pathless woods of Beleriand, the salt spray of the great sea, and the feeling of the wind on the high moors before the shadows grew long. He realizes that his life has become a series of nested silences, a long meditation punctuated by the brief, bright arrivals of others. He is content with this. He understands that the strength of Rivendell lies not in its walls, but in its ability to endure the passage of time without being changed by it, as the years layer upon one another. Elrond notices the subtle changes that escape even the most observant of his kin. He sees the way the constellations have shifted by a fraction of a degree over the last 1,000 years. He notices the way a certain archway has settled into the earth, the stones beginning to merge with the living rock of the cliffside. He reflects on the fading of the old powers, the way the magic of the Eldar is becoming more concentrated, more hidden, like a spring that is slowly retreating underground. He feels the weight of Vilya upon his finger, a constant, humming reminder of his responsibility to hold back the decay of time. It is a heavy burden to be the one who prevents the world from forgetting itself, yet he carries it with a grace that seems entirely effortless. He spends a quiet afternoon in the library, not writing or reading, but simply sitting in the presence of the books. He listens to the distant sound of a flute being played somewhere in the lower gardens, the melody weaving through the stacks of parchment like a golden thread. He thinks of the many languages that have been spoken in this room, the high, crystalline vowels of the Quenya, the rougher, more grounded tones of the Sindarin, and the various dialects of men that have come and gone like summer storms. He realizes that he is the only one left who remembers the specific inflection of certain voices that haven't been heard in 3 millennia. This is the solitude of the witness to hold a truth that no one else can verify, to be the sole keeper of a vanished reality. As the sun begins to dip below the western rim of the valley, casting long violet shadows across the mosaics of the library floor, Elrond moves toward the fireplace. The evening chill is starting to creep in, and he enjoys the simple, physical ritual of reviving the embers. You watch him as he kneels by the hearth, his long robes pooling around him like dark water. He adds a few pieces of dry cedar, and as the flames take hold, the room is filled with a warm, flickering light that dances over the gold-lettered spines of the books. He settles into his high-backed chair, the wood creaking softly in the stillness. He sits there for a long time, watching the embers pulse with a deep internal heat. He feels the quiet purpose of his life, the thousands of days and nights spent in service to the memory of the world. He is not lonely, for the room is filled with the presence of the past, but he is solitary in a way that only an immortal can truly understand. He is the guardian of the threshold, the watcher in the hidden valley, the one who remains when all others have passed into the west or into the earth. The firelight glints off the circlet of silver upon his brow, and for a moment, his face is unmasked, feeling the immense weight of the centuries, the profound sorrow of the witness, and the unshakable peace of the steward. The night settles over Rivendell, a thick and silent blanket that muffles the sound of the falls. Elrond remains by the fire, a figure of absolute stillness and quiet resolve. He knows that tomorrow the sun will rise, the travelers will arrive, and the seasons will continue their slow, majestic dance. He is ready for all of it. He is the point of stillness in the turning world, And as the embers slowly fade into grey ash, he closes his eyes, not in sleep, but in a deep, internal communion with the timeless spirit of the valley. The silent centuries continue to unfold, and in the heart of Imladris, the master of the house remains at his post, a silent sentinel of the fading light. The night does not merely fall in Imladris. It settles, a slow and deliberate descent of violet and charcoal that seems to pull the very essence of the stars down into the deep cloven valley. You follow Elrond as he steps out from the amber glow of the library, his movements as fluid and silent as the shadows that now claim the white stone walkways. The air is transforming, shedding the lingering warmth of the day for a crisp mountain chill that smells of damp moss, wet slate, and the faint, ethereal perfume of the night-blooming jasmine that clings to the lower terraces. Every step Elrond takes is a testament to the nature of time itself, not as a linear arrow, but as a vast, circular sea. For him, the passage of 1,000 years is not a distance travelled, but a depth inhabited. He perceives the world not in the frantic ticking of seconds, but in the slow tectonic shifts of the earth and the majestic, patient rotation of the heavens. As you walk beside him, toward a hidden glade nestled against the eastern cliffs, Elrond's thoughts drift to the nature of immortality. To you, the world is a series of arrivals and departures, but to him it is a constant presence. He reflects on the strange, flickering lives of the mortals who seek shelter beneath his roof. He sees a man grow from a wide-eyed child to a grizzled warrior in what feels like the space between two heartbeats. He watches their hair turn to the color of winter frost, their skin map the trials of their brief journeys, and their eyes dim as the light of their spirits prepares to depart for a destination he cannot follow. To Elrond, this is the great mystery, the gift of men, a release from the circles of the world that he, as an elf, will never truly know. He feels a profound, quiet envy for their ability to leave the stage, even as he carries the burden of staying behind to remember the play. He perceives their aging not as a decay, but as a rapid, beautiful ripening, a frantic blooming before the frost. The glade you enter is a sanctuary within a sanctuary. A thin ribbon of water trickles down the rock face, sounding like a handful of silver coins being dropped into a crystal bowl. The ground is soft with centuries of accumulated pine needles, and the air is heavy with the scent of crushed fern and cold earth. Here, Elrond often meets with his most trusted companions, those few who share the weight of the ages. Tonight, it is Eristor, whose counsel is as sharp and steady as the mountain roots. They do not speak of politics or the shadows in the east. Instead, their conversation is a soft, melodic exchange of philosophical observations. They speak of the way the clouds have draped themselves across the jagged peaks of the Heidegler today. Mimicking the waves of the great sea, they discuss the subtle shift in the songs of the thrushes, noting how the melodies have become more complex as the age wanes. It is a dialogue of the soul, a way of grounding their immense memories in the tangible, fleeting beauty of the present moment. Elrond leans back against the rough bark of an ancient cedar, his hands resting loosely in the folds of his sleeves. He contemplates the paradox of his existence. The more he remembers, the more the present seems to shimmer with a ghostly He sees the valley not just as it is tonight, but as it was when the first stones were quarried, and as it will be when the last elf has departed for the west. For him, memory is a form of sight, a second layer of reality that informs every breath he takes. He reflects on the constancy of his kin, the elves who remain unchanged while the world of men roars and rages around them. This constancy is both a strength and a sorrow. It allows them to preserve the high arts and the deep lore, but it also tethers them to a world that is moving on, leaving them behind like a tide pool after the sea has retreated. He feels the slow, inevitable thinning of the veil between Middle-earth and the undying lands, a sensation like a distant bell tolling in the twilight of his spirit. The walk continues back toward the main house, the creak of an old wooden door echoing softly through the stone corridors as Elrond enters the west wing. The sound is comforting, a domestic heartbeat in the vast silence of the night. He stops to observe a group of young elves who are still awake, their voices hushed as they study a star chart spread across a low table. He watches them with the indulgent patience of a grandfather, noting the way their eyes widen at the mention of the Great Bear or the Belt of Orion. To them, the stars are new and wondrous. To Elrond, they are old friends whose names he has whispered for 3 millennia. He finds a deep, quiet purpose in this transmission of knowledge. He is the bridge, the one who ensures that the light of the past illuminates the path of the future, however brief that future may be for some. As the night deepens, Elrond finds himself alone on a balcony that overlooks the churning white foam of the Bruinen. The smell of the river is stronger, sharp, metallic temps of ozone mixed with the earthy scent of wet limestone. He listens to the water, perceiving it as a physical manifestation of time. It flows, it carves, it destroys, and it creates, yet it is always the same river. He meditates on the concept of waiting. For the short-lived, waiting is a source of anxiety, a waste of precious time. For Elrond, waiting is a sacred act of presence. He has waited for the return of kings, for the blossoming of rare flowers, and for the slow healing of the world's wounds. He understands that patience is not a passive state, but an active engagement with the rhythm of the universe. It is the ability to stand still while the world turns, to remain the witness when all others have looked away. The weight of the centuries is present tonight, but it is not heavy. It is a familiar pressure, like the weight of a well-worn cloak. Elrond reflects on the many who have called him Master or Lord, and how little those titles mean in the face of the infinite night. Here, in the silence of Rivendell, he is simply a steward of the light. He thinks of the fading of the old friends, the lords of the Noldor, who have passed over the sea, leaving him as the solitary keeper of their legacy. He feels the solitude of his position, yet it is a solitude shared with the mountains and the stars. He is never truly alone as long as the wind speaks in the pines and the river sings in the valley. He understands that his immortality is a gift given not for his own sake, but for the sake of the world, so that the memory of what is fair and good might endure a little longer. He watches the passage of a single, thin cloud across the face of the moon. It moves with a slow, ghostly grace, momentarily obscuring the silver light before revealing it once more, brighter than before. This, he thinks, is the history of Middle-earth, a series of shadows passing across an eternal light. The shadows may be long, and they may be dark, but they are always temporary. The light, the starlight of Eärendil, is what remains. He closes his eyes and feels the vibration of the valley in his very bones. The stone, the water, the trees, and the stars are all part of a single, vast harmony, and he is the one who holds the score. He breathes in the cold, midnight air, feeling the silent weight of the centuries settle into a profound, unshakable peace, as the last embers of the watchfires in the courtyard flicker and die. Elrond remains on the balcony, a silent sentinel in the dark. The night is his true domain, the time when the noise of the world falls away and the deeper truths of the earth become audible. He is the master of the silent centuries, the watcher on the threshold. And as the stars march toward the dawn, he remains at his post, a figure of infinite patience and quiet, enduring love for the world he guards. The rhythm of his heart is the rhythm of Imladris, low, steady, and eternal. He is the memory of the world, and for as long as he remains, the world will not be forgotten. He stands in the starlight, a witness to the unfolding mystery of time, content to be the point of stillness in a universe of motion. The moonlight descends into the valley of Imladris, not as a cold intruder, but as a silent silver guest that knows every fold of the stone and every leaf of the ancient elms. You walk with Elrond along the high open-air gallery of the East Wing, where the air is so thin and pure it feels as though it has been filtered through the very stars. The silence here is a living thing, a dense and velvet texture that absorbs the softest whisper, yet Elrond's mind is far from silent, while the inhabitants of his house, the young elves, who have known only the peace of this hidden fold, move about their evening rituals with a light-hearted grace. Elrond is reaching out with a spiritual sight that spans hundreds of leagues. He is the master of restraint, a king without a crown who chooses the burden of the watcher over the glory of the conqueror. You sense the shift in his posture as his thoughts drift to the south and the west. In his mind's eye, he sees the flickering signal fires of the Dunedain in the ruins of Arnar, a kingdom he watched crumble over centuries of slow, agonizing decay. He feels the cold wind blowing through the shattered arches of Fernost, a place that was once a jewel of his brother's lineage. He does not weep for these fallen stones, for he understands that the history of men is a history of ebb and flow, of greatness followed by a long, quiet twilight. His patience is that of the mountain roots. He knows that the shadow growing in the east, the nameless dread that stirs in the ruins of Dol Guldur and the black pits of Mordor, is a tide that has risen before and will rise again. He observes the rumors of warfare, clashing of steel in the distant vales of Gondor, the burning of villages on the edge of the wild with a profound and weary wisdom. He could intervene. He could summon the remaining power of the Eldar and march once more to war, but he restrains his hand. He knows that his true role in these silent centuries is not to be a sword, but to be a shield, a keeper of the light that must survive when the fires of men have turned to ash. The sounds of the valley rise up to meet you on the gallery, providing a grounding counterpoint to these heavy reflections. The rustle, a sudden breeze, born in the high snowfields of the Hightegla, sweeps through the valley, causing a million leaves of oak and birch to hiss like the retreating tide. The wind, it whistles through the fluted pillars of the halls, creating a low, flute-like drone that seems to harmonize with the distant, rhythmic thrumming of the Bruinen, the life from the lower terraces. The faint, liquid notes of a harp string being plucked drift upward, followed by the muffled laughter of elves who are entirely unaware of the shadows. Their lord is currently contemplating. Elrond listens to these sounds with a tender, protective focus. To him, the mundane peace of his household is the greatest victory he has ever achieved. It is a victory of the spirit over the sword. He watches a young elf maiden carry a tray of silver cups across the moonlit courtyard, her footsteps a rhythmic staccato tapping on the stones. She stops to look at the moon, a moment of pure, unburdened wonder, and Elrond feels a surge of quiet purpose. He endures the weight of the ages so that she may have this single, untroubled moment. He is the filter through which the darkness of the world must pass, emerging on the other side as nothing more than a distant rumor. a story told by the fire to remind the young that the world is vast and strange. He turns from the gallery and leads you down a winding stair of white marble, the stone cool and smooth beneath your hand. We move toward the great library, where the scent of old parchment and beeswax is particularly strong tonight. Elrond settles into his accustomed chair, but he does not reach for a book. Instead, he sits in the dim light of a single, guttering candle, his face half hidden in shadow. He is meditating on the nature of fading. He feels the slow withdrawal of the old world's strength, the way the ancient woods are speaking less and the stars are becoming more distant. He reflects on his lost friends, Círdan, who still waits by the grey sea, and the memory of Gil-galad, whose fall marked the end of an era of light. He sees their faces in the smoke of the candle, not with the sharp pain of a fresh wound, but with the quiet reverence one accords to a sunset. They are the giants upon whose shoulders he stands, the architects of the peace he now maintains through sheer, indomitable will. His restraint is a form of power that few can comprehend. In an age of rising shadows, the urge to act, to strike, to reassert one's will upon the world is a siren song that has destroyed many a great lord. But Elrond has seen the folly of pride. He has seen the Silmarils burn the hands of those who tried to claim them, and he has seen the great rings tempt the hearts of the wise. He chooses the path of the silent witness, the counselor who waits for the right moment, the right person, and the right turn of the wheel. He understands that some battles are won not by the strength of arms, but by the endurance of memory. If he can keep the lore of the elder days alive in Imladris, if he can preserve the languages, the songs, and the lineages of the past, then the shadow can never truly claim a total victory. He is the guardian of the substance of hope, a flame that burns quietly in the heart of the valley, invisible to the dark eye that seeks only power as the middle of the night approaches. Elrond rises and walks out into the gardens once more. The air is heavy with the scent of night-fearing lilies and the damp, earthy aroma of the riverbank. He moves toward the Bruinen, his steps slow and measured, his robes brushing against the tall grass with a sound like a long-drawn breath. He reaches a small, secluded patch of mossy earth beneath a weeping willow whose branches dip into the swirling water. Here he sits. He does not assume a posture of prayer or ritual. He simply rests, his back against the ancient trunk, his eyes watching the play of moonlight on the rushing surface of the river. In this moment, the weight of the centuries feels like the water itself a constant, flowing pressure that is both a burden and a source of life. He reflects on the passage of time as a physical sensation. He feels the years of the Second Age as a deep, cold current, and the centuries of the Third Age as the ripples on the surface. He thinks of the millions of souls who have lived and died while he has sat in this valley, the kings of men, the lords of the dwarves, the countless birds and beasts that have flourished and perished in the shadow of the mountains. He feels no superiority in his longevity, only a profound sense of responsibility. He is the one who stayed behind to watch the garden when everyone else went to sleep. The river speaks to him in 1,000 voices. It tells him of the snows that fell 10,000 years ago, now melting to join the sea. It tells him of the stones it has ground into sand and the roots it has nourished. Elrond closes his eyes, letting the sound wash over him until his own heartbeat seems to sync with the rhythm of the Bruinen. He is at peace. The rumours of war, the shadows in the east, the fading of his kin, of these are part of the great music, the discord and the harmony that make up the world. He accepts his role in that music without complaint. He is the long-held note, the steady bass that provides the foundation for the more frantic melodies of the shorter-lived races. The moonlight shifts, moving across his ageless face, illuminating the faint lines of wisdom and the deep, dark pools of his eyes. He is a figure of infinite patience, a soul that has learned to find the eternal in the ephemeral. He feels the quiet vigilance of his life as a form of love for the world as it is, in all its beauty and all its sorrow. He knows that his time in Middle-earth is drawing toward its eventual close, that the day will come when he too must take the straight road and leave these shores forever. But that day is not tonight. Tonight there is only the river, the moon, and the silent, enduring peace of Imladris, as the pre-dawn chill begins to stir the willow branches. Elrond remains by the water, a silent sentinel of the hidden years. He feels the passage of the centuries not as a march toward an end, but as a deepening of the soul. He is the master of the silent centuries, the keeper of the memory of the world. And as the stars begin to fade into the first pale light of morning, he is content to have been the witness to it all. He rests in the stillness, a part of the valley, a part of the river, and a part of the eternal story of the earth. The rhythm of Rivendell continues, slow and steady, a heartbeat that will echo in the halls of memory long after the last elf has departed. Elrond breathes in the damp, cold air of the dawn, a man of 1,000 winters and 1,000 springs, ready to welcome the new day with the same quiet, unshakable grace that has defined his long and storied life. The light of a new morning, pale and silver, begins to filter through the high arched windows of the Hall of Lore, and you follow Elrond as he steps into the waking world of his people. The transition from the deep, nocturnal meditation to the active stewardship of the day is as smooth as the surface of a mountain lake. You walk behind him as he approaches a group of young elves, an alone, wide-eyed mortal traveller who have gathered in the courtyard. They are waiting for him, not with the frantic demand of subjects seeking a king, but with the quiet, reverent anticipation of students awaiting a master. Elrond's mentoring is not a matter of lectures or stern commands. It is a gentle, reflective unfolding of the world. He shares the lore of the stars and the stones as if he were telling a story to the wind, his voice a low, rhythmic melody that settles the hearts of those who listen. He leads them toward a high terrace that overlooks the main falls of the Bruinen. Here, the mist rises in great, white plumes, catching the early light and turning it into a shimmering veil of iridescence. Elrond gestures toward the water, but he does not speak of its height or its power. Instead, he teaches them the art of calm observation. He asks the young learners to describe not the waterfall itself, but the way the spray moves, the moss upon the distant rocks, and the specific sound the water makes when it hits a deep pool versus a shallow stone. He is teaching them to perceive the minute, interconnected details of the living world, for he knows that wisdom begins with the ability to see the small things. You watch as a young elf-man closes his eyes, his head tilted as he mimics Elrond's focus, his face slowly transforming from a mask of effort to one of serene understanding. The smell of the morning is crisp hither, sharp ozone of the falls, mixed with the resinous scent of the dark pines that cling to the cliffs. As the morning progresses, Elrond moves back into the inner halls, followed by the soft, rhythmic tapping of the learner's footsteps on the cool masonry. In the scriptorium, the air is thick with the comforting aroma of beeswax candles and the earthy, dry scent of aged parchment. Elrond sits among them, not on a throne, but on a simple wooden stool. Guiding a mortal traveller, in the delicate task of deciphering a map of the ancient world. You see the traveller's hands tremble slightly as they touch the vellum. But Elrond places a long, steady finger upon the map, his touch radiating a calming warmth. He speaks of the subtle matters of the road, how to read the intent of the wind, how to find the hidden paths that the earth provides for the weary, and how to distinguish between the shadows of the past and the shadows of the present. There is soft laughter when the traveller makes a small error in the old tongue, a sound like clear water over pebbles, and Elrond's own smile is a quiet, encouraging light. He reflects on the slow unfolding of history as he watches his students. To him, they are the new leaves on an ancient tree. He understands that while he holds the memory of the trunk and the roots, they are the ones who must feel the sunlight and the rain of this current age. He meditates on his role as a bridge between the vast, terrifying scale of the elder days and the intimate, fragile lives of these learners. He carries the weight of 1,000 wars and 10,000 years of sorrow, yet he filters all of it through a lens of patience and grace. He does not burden them with the full horror of the darkness. Instead, he gives them the tools to recognize and cherish the light. He is the keeper of the long view, the one who knows that even the most terrifying storm is eventually followed by a morning as quiet and golden as this one in the afternoon. Elrond retires to a secluded glade by a smaller, hidden waterfall that trickles into a pool of dark emerald water. Here, the pulse of life in Rivendell is at its most subtle. You watch him sit upon a flat, mossy stone, his hands resting loosely in his lap. He is observing the dragonflies as they dart across the surface of the pool, their wings a frantic, iridescent blur. He reflects on the contrast between their feverish energy and the glacial stillness of the mountain behind them. For Elrond, this is the central truth of Middle-earth, the interplay between the fleeting and the eternal. He sees the rise and fall of kingdoms, the shifting of alliances, and the fading of old friends as the dragonflies of history bright, beautiful, and brief. He remains the stone, the witness who endures so that the story of the flight may be told. The sensory details of the valley wrap around you like a heavy, velvet cloak. The sound, the constant, rhythmic thrumming of the Bruinen is joined by the high-pitched, crystalline chime of the hidden falls and the dry, papery rustle of the willow leaves. The smell, the scent of the library parchment and ink is replaced by the intoxicating perfume of night-blooming flowers and the damp, cool aroma of the shaded earth. The touch, you feel the vibration of the water in the ground beneath you, a low-frequency hum that seems to resonate with the very bones of the mountains. Elrond stands and walks back toward the house as the sun begins to dip below the western peaks, casting long, violet shadows across the valley floor. He passes through the hall of fire, where the logs are being readied for the evening's songs. He pauses to speak with an old elf singer, their conversation a hushed, melodic exchange about the phrasing of an ancient lay. Elrond's involvement in the daily lives of his people is not one of management, but of harmony. He ensures that the rhythm of the house remains steady and true, a reflection of the eternal peace he has cultivated within his own spirit. He is the master of the silent centuries, not because he commands time, but because he has learned to inhabit it with absolute presence, as the first stars of evening begin to pierce the deepening indigo of the sky. Elrond makes his way to the highest balcony of the north wing. The air is sharp and cold now, tasting of the high snows and the infinite void. He stands at the railing, his dark hair stirred by a stray breeze, looking up at the celestial tapestry. He notices the distant stars, the same ones his father, Rivendell, navigates by in the high heavens, and he feels a profound dual sensation. He feels small, a single soul in a universe of terrifying scale and ancient mystery, yet he also feels timeless. He is a part of the march of ages, a thread in the great design that began before the sun and moon were made. He contemplates the slow, inevitable march of the ages, the way the third age is drawing toward its eventual, tumultuous close, and the way the fourth age, the age of men, is waiting in the wings of history. He feels no fear for this transition, only a quiet, meditative acceptance. He has done his part. He has guarded the valley, preserved the lore, and mentored the next generation of witnesses. He has been the point of stillness in a world of change. As the darkness settles fully over Imladris, muffling the sound of the falls and the voices in the halls, Elrond remains on the balcony, a silhouette against the starlight. He is the guardian of the dream, the watcher on the threshold, and as the stars turn slowly above him, he feels the weight of the centuries not as a burden, but as a benediction. He is Elrond of Rivendell, and in the heart of the silent centuries, he has found the peace that passeth all understanding. He closes his eyes, letting the cold wind of the mountains wash over him, content to be a part of the long, slow, and beautiful story of the world. The deep indigo of the late evening air in Imladris is not merely a lack of light, but a presence of cool, breathable silk that settles over the valley, muffling the roar of the falls into a rhythmic, distant heartbeat. You follow Elrond as he steps away from the soft, flickering orange of the hearth fire in the Hall of Fire and moves toward the open galleries that face the southern woods. The transition is a physical release. The warmth of the house gives way to the sharp, bracing scent of the high mountain night, a mixture of cold stone, damp pine needles, and the faint, ethereal perfume of the white nifredil that blooms even in the shadow of the cliffs. Elrond walks with a slow, measured stride, his hands clasped behind his back, his silver-grey robes whispering against the polished floorboards like the breath of the wind as he walks. His mind, a vast and luminous library of 3 ages, drifts toward the ghosts of his heart. He reflects on the nature of love among the immortal, a tether that stretches across the sundering seas and the very borders of the world. He thinks of Celebrian, his wife, whose absence is a quiet, constant ache, like the hum of a string that has been plucked and never quite stops vibrating. He remembers the specific light in her eyes, the way her laughter once harmonized with the silver bells of the valley, and the silver gold of her hair that seemed to catch the morning sun even in the depths of winter. She has long since departed for the undying lands, seeking the healing that the Middle-earth could no longer provide her. And Elrond carries this separation not as a sharp tragedy, but as a patient, enduring devotion. He is the one who stayed, the anchor of their lineage, and he feels her presence in the very air of Rivendell, the way the moonlight touches the fountain and the way the evening primrose opens its petals to the dark. His reflections broaden to encompass the loss of his closest friends, the high kings and the lawmasters who once shared his burden. He thinks of the fellowship of the Second Age, of the councils held under stars that have since shifted their positions in the heavens. He remembers the weight of Gil-galad's hand on his shoulder and the piercing, starlit gaze of Ser. To him, they are not gone. They are simply part of the foundation. He perceives his life as a long, slow conversation with the departed, a quiet devotion to guiding his people through the narrowing years. He watches a young elf warden pass him in the corridor, bowing low with a silent, reverent grace. And Elrond returns the gesture with a nod that carries the weight of 5,000 years of protection. He is the father of this house, the guardian of the dream, and he finds a profound, meditative purpose in being the one who remembers the names that everyone else has forgotten. The sensory world of the valley continues to weave its hypnotic tapestry around you. The sound, from a distant, upper room, the faint liquid notes of a flute begin to drift through the halls. A melody so slow and wandering it seems to have no beginning and no end. It is joined by the rhythmic, percussive clink of a single hammer in the forge, a sound that feels like the ticking of a cosmic clock. The smell, the air, is a complex blend, the metallic, cold ozone of the river's spray, the earthy musk of the autumn leaves beginning to turn in the lower woods, and the sweet, resinous scent of cedar wood smoke. The touch, as Elrond leans against a pillar of white stone. You feel the immense, grounded stability of the valley. The stone is cool, holding the memory of the glacier that carved it, and it vibrates almost imperceptibly with the power of the falls. As he stands there, Elrond feels a quiet ripple in the background of his centuries-long piece, a subtle, cold stir in the spiritual air of the world. He perceives a shadow growing in the far east, a nameless dread that pulses like a low, discordant note in the great symphony. He senses the stirrings of ancient malice in the black pits of Mordor and the shifting of dark clouds over the heights of Dol Guldur. But he does not react with fear or the frantic energy of a mortal king. His restraint is his strength. He presents these shadows to himself as he would a change in the weather, a storm that is coming, inevitably, but one that can be prepared for with wisdom and patience. He knows that the role of Imladris is to be the lighthouse in this gathering gloom, the place where the maps are kept and the strategies are forged in the silence of the library. He is the watcher on the threshold, and he accepts the rising danger with a calm, unshakable resolve. He moves down toward the riverbank, the grass beneath his feet already damp with the first dew of the coming dawn. He finds a small, flat stone near the water's edge and sits, watching the Bruinen churn with white foam as it navigates the dark boulders. Here, he meditates on the constancy of the water. He reflects on how the river has seen the arrival of 10,000 travelers, the weary, the hopeful, the broken, and the brave. He thinks of the many who have crossed the bridge above him, their boots clattering with a frantic rhythm that eventually fades into the silence of the woods. He sees them as the leaves on the surface of the water, carried along by a current they cannot control, while he is the stone beneath, witnessing the flow without being swept away by it. The solitude of his position is a sacred space. He does not feel lonely, for he is in communion with the very bones of the earth. He reflects on the straight road that leads out of the world, the path that so many of his kin have already taken. He feels the pull of the west in his own blood, a rhythmic tidal tugging that calls him home. Yet he remains anchored by his love for this valley and his duty to those who still look to him for light. He is the master of the in-between years, the architect of a peace that is both fragile and enduring. He finds a strange, quiet joy in the act of preservation, in the knowing that as long as he stands, the memory of the elder days remains a living, breathing reality in Middle-earth. As the stars begin to dim and the first pale wash of grey touches the eastern horizon, Elrond rises and walks back toward the house. He moves through the lower woods, where the autumn leaves have begun to carpet the ground in a mosaic of copper, gold, and blood red. The sound of his footsteps is a soft, rhythmic crunch that harmonizes with the sighing of the wind in the high pines. He stops to pick up a single, perfect leaf of a silver birch, turning it over in his hand with the same focus he would give to an ancient scroll. He feels the weight of the centuries in this moment, the sheer mass of time he has inhabited, but it does not bow his head. Instead, it provides him with a deep, subterranean serenity of purpose. He understands that he is a part of a design that is larger than any single age. He is the keeper of the transition, the one who holds the door open for the heroes of the future while honoring the kings of the past. He is the bridge between the starlight and the dawn. As he reaches the stone steps of the last homely house, he turns one last time to look at the mountains, their silhouettes jagged and black against the brightening sky. He feels the quiet vigilance of his life, the immense patience of his spirit, and the unshakable peace of his soul. The shadow may grow, the world may change, and the seasons may turn, but in the heart of Imladris, the light of the Peridel remains, steady and true. He breathes in the cold, morning air, a man of 5,000 years who is as fresh as the coming day, and he steps back into the halls of his home, content to be the silent witness to the unfolding mystery of the world. The river continues to roar, the leaves continue to fall, and the centuries continue to pass like water over stone. Elrond is the stone, and in his stillness he finds the strength to endure all things. The stars over Imladris do not flicker with the frantic energy of the lowlands. They pulse with a slow, deliberate radiance, a celestial breathing that Elrond Peridil has synchronized with his own heart over the passing of 5,000 years. You follow him now, stepping softly behind the hem of his velvet robes, as he moves through the high open-air corridors of the last homely house. The air is exceptionally still, a cold and crystalline silence that tastes of the ancient snows of the Heitigla and the faint, metallic scent of the stars themselves. This is the threshold of a new era, a shifting of the world's tectonic plates that only the truly immortal can feel in their marrow. Elrond walks with a lightness that belies the staggering weight of the scrolls he has just set aside, the genealogies of kings whose thrones are now dust, and the maps of forests that have long since withered into heath. He pauses by a slender pillar of white stone, his gaze drifting westward toward the darkening silhouette of the mountains. He is observing Middle-earth, not as a collection of maps and boundaries, but as a living, breathing entity. He feels the slow, rhythmic pulse of the great river Anduin far to the east, and the deep, dormant dreams of the Ents in the ancient woods of Fangorn. He perceives the world as a vast tapestry of interlocking lives, most of them brief as a spark, yet all of them essential to the design. His stewardship is a secret one, a quiet preparation for the storms he knows must eventually break against these cliffs. He is the one who keeps the heirlooms of a fallen kingdom, the one who whispers the forgotten names of the stars to the wanderers of the wild, and the one who ensures that the spark of hope, the Estelle, is never fully extinguished by the encroaching night. You watch as he descends into the lower gardens, where the evening dew has turned the lawns into a sea of liquid silver. He moves toward a cluster of white nifredil that glows with a faint internal light, and he kneels, his fingers hovering just millimeters above the petals. He is not merely gardening. He is contemplating the nature of persistence. These flowers have bloomed in this same spot for 20 generations of men, unchanged, while empires outside the valley have risen, bled, and vanished. This is the constancy Elrond guards. He reflects on the travelers who have passed through his gates in the recent years, the quiet, great-cloaked wanderers, the messengers from the havens, and the secretive lawkeepers of the south. He has guided them all with a soft hand, providing the counsel they did not know they needed, planting seeds of wisdom that will take centuries to sprout. The sensory details of the night are a profound meditation in themselves. The sound, the Bruinen, has found its winter voice, a deeper, more resonant chord that vibrates through the stone foundations of the house. Above it, you hear the dry, rhythmic snip of a gardener's shears in a distant terrace and the low, melodic chanting of the elves in the Hall of Fire. A song that has no end, only cycles. The smell, the air, is a rich, cold breather scent of damp earth, the sharp ozone of the waterfalls, and the warm, resinous aroma of the cedarwood fires that burn in the guest rooms. The touch, as you brush against the stone wall of the terrace, you feel the immense, silent weight of the valley. It is a presence, a physical gravity that holds the past in place against the rushing wind of the future. Elrond rises and walks toward the great stone bridge, his footsteps making a soft, percussive rhythm against the masonry. He looks down into the churning white foam of the river, and his thoughts drift to the nature of time. To the mortals he protects, time is a thief, a predator that devours their beauty and their strength. But to Elrond, time is a river. It carries things away, yes, but it also brings things to the shore. He reflects on the straight road and the fading of his people. He feels the slow, inevitable thinning of the veil between this world and the West, a sensation like the drawing of a long, soft breath. He is the guardian of the transition, the one who stays behind to ensure that the departure of the firstborn is a grace, not a tragedy. His patience is not the patience of a stone, but the patience of a gardener who knows that the winter is as necessary as the spring. He contemplates the secret guidance he has provided to the lineages of men, the heirs of Isildur, who wander the wild, unaware of the full majesty of their blood. He sees himself as a weaver, pulling at a single thread here and a single thread there, keeping the pattern from unraveling while the weaver of the shadows tries to tear it apart. He feels the stirrings of the Third Age events, the quiet gathering of forces that will one day culminate in a fire that consumes the world. But he does not rush to meet it. He knows that the most powerful weapon against the shadow is not the sword, but the preservation of the light, the law, the memory, and the unshakable peace of a quiet heart. You follow him back into the house, through the silent galleries where the statues of the Valar stand in eternal contemplation. Elrond stops before a likeness of Vardar, the Starkindler, and he bows his head in a moment of silent, internal communion. He is reflecting on his own smallness in the face of the eons. Despite his power, his wisdom, and his long life, he is but a single note in the music of the Aina. This realization does not diminish him. It settles him. It provides the serenity of purpose that allows him to endure the silent centuries without bitterness or boredom. He understands that his stewardship is a gift, a chance to witness the unfolding of a masterpiece. The night deepens, and the stars shift their positions in the velvet sky, marking the passage of another hour in the long watch. Elrond makes his way to the high balcony of his private chambers, a place that looks out over the entire expanse of the valley and toward the jagged, black teeth of the mountains. He stands there with his hands resting on the cool marble railing, his face upturned to the starlight. He feels the gentle flow of the centuries as a physical sensation, a cool breeze that passes through his spirit, leaving him refreshed and clear. He is the point of stillness, the keeper of the memory, and the architect of the peace. The weight of knowledge he carries is calm, not a burden that bows his shoulders. but a foundation that holds him upright. He knows what has been, what is, and much of what may yet be. He sees the slow march of the ages as a beautiful, tragic, and ultimately triumphant journey toward a destination that only the stars truly know. He breathes in the midnight air, a deep and slow inhalation that fills his lungs with the essence of Imladris the water, the stone, the trees, and the light. He is content. The story of the silent centuries does not end. It merely continues, a soft and rhythmic melody that will play on as long as the Bruinen flows and the stars of Elbrith shine upon the world. He remains on the balcony, a silent, watchful figure at the threshold of history. The darkness is not a threat to him. It is a canvas upon which the light of the past is projected. He feels the quiet rhythm of life in the valley below, sleeping elves, the dreaming travelers, the silent trees, and the unceasing river. It is a harmony that he has spent a lifetime protecting, and as the night stretches out toward the inevitable dawn, he is exactly where he belongs. The narrative of his life remains open-ended, a long and beautiful sentence that has not yet reached its final period. He is Elrond of Rivendell, and in the heart of the night, he is the witness, the steward, and the guardian of the fading light, watching as the centuries flow softly into the eternal dark. As you leave him there, a shadow among the stars, you feel the peace of the valley settle over your own spirit. The story of the ages continues, not in the thunder of battles, but in the silence of the library, the rustle of the leaves, and the unshakable resolve of the master of Imladris. Sleep now, for the valley is guarded, the memory is preserved, and the light of the Peridhall remains steady and true forever.